When the practice is more like a direct, spontaneous response to what is unfolding, arising in you, you cannot call it a practice in the same way. It is a practice without a doer and without an intention. There is no intention in that practice. Awareness is doing everything. Awareness is doing everything. Awareness is doing everything through its own dynamic expression, that is that cosmic force, life force, the universe. Only the universe is the doer of this process of awakening, not you. We first need to understand intuitively that there is only one reality. That one reality, we call it consciousness or Brahman or the divine or even God. The name doesn't matter. But there is only one reality, despite of the appearance of a multiplicity of forms. Right? So that multiplicity is a projection, an expression of that one unique reality without a second. Ek eva advitima. So that is the profound meaning of the word Advaita. That there is one reality without a second. So when the human mind sees two or many, that is because of the conditioning of the mind. Because the mind is not programmed to see the oneness. The mind is programmed to see the multiplicity in order to discriminate, to differentiate, to navigate, to interact in this world of multiplicity. Yet, the reality behind this multiplicity is this absolute oneness. And we can only say that it is not two, as the Sanskrit word Advaita conveys, it is not two. That's all what we can say. We can't describe, neither understand with the mind what is the oneness. We can't. The mind cannot grasp that. It can only be directly recognized or realized. It's beyond understanding, mental, conceptual understanding. We can understand conceptually the multiplicity. We cannot understand conceptually the oneness. Now, time and space are an expression of that one reality, a projection. So it means that if all there is that one unique consciousness, so consciousness can only see itself everywhere. Consciousness that is reflected in the different sentient forms, that means forms who are able to reflect consciousness in a special mode. That mode we call awareness. It's a choice. We call it awareness because that word is meaningful. It is not available in every language, but thanks God it is available in English. You can call it local consciousness. You can call it conscious attention. So that awareness is already a transformation of consciousness. It is not in appearance the absolute consciousness, yet in nature, in essence, it is the absolute consciousness. So that awareness, that reflected mode of manifestation of consciousness, which is associated with mind, with every sentient form. Somehow, in this association, at this point of time, get stuck. The sentient forms, we speak here mainly about the human forms, suffer. That suffering is due to this wrong association. Something has gone wrong in the association, so much so that that particular sentient form is not aware of its own true nature and takes itself to be that outer equipment, which is a transient reality, which has no absolute reality. Now you see the problem. Suffering comes only from identification. That identification brings separation. Separation brings frustration, unsatisfaction, desire, expectation, etc. That is suffering. So somehow all these sentient forms suffer from separation, because the identification will cause a sort of shrinking. So, to overcome the suffering, one has to be aware of one's own nature. Now, here is the problem. If by awakening we understand the direct seeing. It is true, it is a direct seeing. But is it the direct seeing of someone? Is it the direct seeing of something? So here is the problem. No one is awakening to anything. All there is consciousness. You see, the importance of the first point when I start saying all there is consciousness. So awakening cannot be the awakening of someone. Neither someone who is a fiction can awake to something. Only consciousness knows consciousness. So when we speak of a direct seeing, it's a way of speaking, because there is no duality in consciousness. That's why consciousness is also called jnana, knowledge. That is a direct knowledge. It knows itself without any duality between a subject and an object. So the direct seeing is not the seeing of someone, not the seeing of something. In awakening, there is no one who awakens and something that is known as an object of this awakening. Now, that awakening, therefore, for the same reason, can never be an experience. Because an experience implies an experiencer and something that is experienced. Once consciousness is through this reflection to the mind, the sentient form, one consciousness sees consciousness, it always sees itself. But somehow in the association with mind, the flow was stuck. Now, when the seeing takes place, the direct seeing takes place, what is there to see? Nothing remains to be seen. Nothing is left to be seen. That's why it is the end of all experiences. So, what the sentient form is that pure awareness, first of all, yet that is not the complete revelation, Because what I said about awareness, I said it is a functional expression of consciousness. It's a functional expression, it's a mode of expression. Huh? But the essence of that awareness is the infinite, is the absolute infinite consciousness. So when we abide in that awareness, we come to know the essence of awareness. And that's why awareness is the key. Awareness is the gate, the gateless gate. Because awareness is not also an object. Awareness cannot really be defined, except we can speak in terms of witnessing. We can speak in terms of pure subjectivity. That's all we can say. That's the mode of expression of consciousness. Consciousness manifests as this pure subjectivity in us. And that pure subjectivity will undergo a sort of expansion, will be dragged into a story by the mind. A story will be superimposed on that pure subjectivity. And from that pure subjectivity, a sense of individuality will arise, and from there, a sense of being a person, which is a complete fiction, a complete construction by the mind. That person does not exist only in the mind. It's only an imagination. All that exists here is this pure awareness, which is the foremost, the primary, the purest expression of consciousness. It is consciousness. In essence, it is consciousness. So, all this means that what we are, in a sense, it is already awakened. That means we are all awakened, we are all enlightened. Because we were never anything else than that pure awareness or consciousness. We were never anything else. But to be liberated from this superstructure, this superimposition created by the mind, then we need understanding. We need understanding. That's the specific part of Vedanta. So understanding is a must. Simple understanding. We are not going into the complicated philosophy of Advaita Vedanta. No, there's no need for that. Because you can also get lost there. Simple understanding that what I take myself to be is just a belief, which is the product of mind, and also culture, education, society. So it is a conditioning superimposed on my pristine nature. Now, if you replace the old belief by what is still now yet a new belief, that I am not the individual person, what I am is pure presence, pure beingness. I am that pure consciousness. Then slowly, gradually, you see, a distanciation will take place. That will be very conducive, that can prepare the shift. Because if your belief in being a person is still strong, this shift may hardly occur. So we need to revisit all our beliefs and our habits and all the routines of the mind, all the patterns, how we understand this life. Everything has to be revisited. from this pure perspective, the entity we believed we are can never awake, because that entity not only does not exist really, but it is also not sentient. How can something that is not sentient realize or recognize sentience? It is not possible. So only consciousness knows consciousness. It is known by itself, in itself, through itself. So you will ask the question, then what can we do if we feel now an aspiration to come to this direct seeing, to come to the fulfillment that is our true nature, the fullness that we are? Is there anything we can do? Different religions will offer different paths, different ways. And definitely all have succeeded to bring individuals to liberation. It is a fact that all the major religions have had great mystics who came to the non-dual state. They may not have formulated that in a non-dual way, but if you read through their poems and their expressions, you can understand, you can recognize that one unique, ultimate, non-experience, that means direct recognition of the Absolute. Unmistakably. So all part of, say, the major religions have led seekers of truth or God to liberation. Now, those paths may be very hard, very long. They may not suit everyone. And the path that is proposed by one school in India, which is usually considered as the highest teaching, the highest philosophy, that is the Advaita school of Vedanta, proposes the most direct path. So it is not that we say that there is only one path that is exclusive. Not at all. It is one path among other paths. But what is particular is the path of Advaita, that is the most direct one. Why is it so? Because of the understanding. If you understand that you are already what you are looking for, that you cannot attain anything, you cannot attain the truth, you cannot reach there, because it is not something different than you. The truth that you are searching is yourself, your true self. So who is the seeker? The seeker is, again, a creation of the mind. The seeker is only in our imagination. The seeker can never realize the truth. The seeker has to be dropped for truth to be realized. Yet, we may consider ourselves as spiritual seekers. If we have that understanding, that temporarily we are seekers, but I know that what I am is the truth. But it's not yet directly known. It's an intuition, but it's not directly known. So, is there anything, if you are already the truth, that you can do? Well, you know, the question is easy, but the answer is difficult. Yes and no. Yes and no. Because, let me explain that. First of all, I want to ask you if there's anything you can do by yourself that you are in control. Of course not. No one was in control of this pandemic. You are not in control. You were not in control of your birth. You were not in control of your agenda when you were in the womb of your mother. You were not in control in the choice of where you took the physical birth, of the conditioning, of your parents. You are not really in control. And what you think you are in control of, it's again a concept in the mind. Because all what is happening is actually the effect of a whole chain of causes, of conditionings. So what happens at any moment is that which is bound to happen. We call it destiny. But let us not go in a concept of destiny. Again, there we would be wrong. I would say more scientifically that all what is happening is entangled in that cause and effect theory, that everything has a cause, and therefore it was bound to manifest. So even when you consciously decide to do something, actually that decision is also the result of so many interactions in your brain, and the idea of being the decider of that decision is, again, an imagination, because your brain has already decided for everything before you came to think that you are the decider. So there is no really this free will, you see. But let us not now stop here in the reflection, because then that's another subject. Now the question was, can you do something? So from the point of view of this law of cause and effect and destiny, of course no. And this is very important. Why it is important? Because if there is nothing you can do, all what has to happen is that which has to happen, which is bound to happen. And now I have a good news, a very good news indeed, that you feel within you an aspiration for liberation, isn't it? There is an aspiration. Where does it come from? That is the maturation of this process, which I was mentioning. Because if you have that aspiration, the desire to know the truth, to know yourself, to be free, it means that it is already written in your destiny that sooner or later you come to this awakening. It is the preliminaries. So when someone feels this aspiration, he, she is going to awake sooner or later. You see? So all a seeker can do is to go with the flow, to follow that inner aspiration, to be true to that inner aspiration, not to mix it with other tendencies. If you really respond to the call of the heart, which is the call of the self, the call of consciousness, then consciousness will terminate this process and terminate you. This is only the beginning of this process of complete awakening. Only consciousness can cause awakening. You, again, are not in control of your awakening. You are not the doer of your enlightenment. Only when the time is ripe and this process has come to maturity and this whole structure of beliefs somehow is ready to collapse. When one feels that he, she can give up everything, then it will take place. It has to take place. You can help, you can contribute to this process by right thinking, right understanding, right living. Huh? That means you can ponder on this, you can contemplate the truth with your deepest intuition. You can focus your attention, I would say, exclusively on this, and at the exclusion of other things that are just a distraction. When your attention is fully focused on this, when you feel that you are now ready to surrender, to give up everything, to let go of everything, then it can only happen. There is practice and practice. And in every school and every type of sadhana, practice is different. Because the preliminaries are different. And it's fine. But in the perspective of Advaita, the word practice is, I would say, ambiguous. Why it is ambiguous? Because a practice implies a practitioner. And it implies something to be practiced to reach somewhere. Again, the same problem. Because if your practice will only reinforce the practitioner, who will evolve and will come closer and closer to that so-called transcendental reality, then definitely it will create more distance. Because a practice can definitely reinforce beliefs. The beliefs about the awakened state as a sort of a place of immense bliss, etc., etc., and also reinforce all the ideas about yourself as the one who is going to awake. So that is, I would say, the great danger of any practice. So a practice, a spiritual practice, has to be supervised by a senior, someone who knows the danger of practice. Because if you go by yourself, I think you may fall into this trap. It has to be supervised by a senior, by a guide, by a teacher, and so that the practice, instead of reinforcing the practitioner, will terminate the practitioner. This is the real aim, the true aim of the practice, to finish the practitioner. Now, I'm not saying that a practice should not be done. I'm not saying that. But the perspective is quite different than in other schools of philosophy. Why is it so? Because if a practice is there, it is more a practice that will unfold naturally. It is not a practice that you impose to yourself. It is something that comes with life. It's part of the unfoldment. And so when the practice is a spontaneous response to what is unfolding in you, then you can't say that there is a doer. A doer is there when you decide to practice something, you adopt a practice. It's a sort of decision. The practice is under your control because you follow some guidelines, and with an intention to reach somewhere. When the practice is more like a direct, spontaneous response to what is unfolding, arising in you, you cannot call it a practice in the same way. It is a practice without a doer and without an intention. There is no intention in that practice. This practice, that is the spontaneous arising unfoldment, it is not done by you. It is done by what? By who? It is done by that non-locatable energy, that same energy, call it Shakti, that is the dynamic expression of consciousness that is actually running or ruling the cosmos. That is the cosmic intelligence. That is the unique force behind all phenomena. That is what is bringing up this unfoldment in you. So that is the only doer. The only doer is that cosmic energy. You cannot even locate it because it is everywhere. It is the entire phenomenal manifestation. It is the non-locatable Shakti that is none else than the energetical expression of awareness. That means that awareness is doing everything. Awareness is doing everything. Awareness is doing everything through its own dynamic expression, that is that cosmic force, life force, the universe. Only the universe is the doer of this process of awakening, not you. Now, you have no control on that, and you were never in control of that, as I said. So, all you can do, but it's not a doing, it is to, first of all, to accept, to surrender to that process in you, because you will feel more and more the inner call. It comes as a deep aspiration from within, you can say from the heart. Will you respond to it? Now here comes, you see, all the impediments created by the mind, because the mind will also derive your attention to other objects, other objects of interest. And so this may make this journey a long journey. It is very direct if you respond directly, immediately, sincerely to that inner call. Just be with that call. Now, don't go anywhere else. Don't touch anything else. Be only there. Give yourself to it. Dedicate yourself to it. That is, you can call it the call of God, the call of the self, the call of the universe. Be totally open to that. Give yourself entirely to that and to nothing else. And this is the most direct path. So you have to abide within yourself, because the call comes from within. It is actually the pure I. That's why self-inquiry is also a very, very direct approach, because it brings you to the pure I. And no one would go there if there were no call. No one would be interested in the teachings of Sri Ramana Maharshi if there was not such a call. It's only for those who feel and hear the call. So if you hear the call, it means you are on the list of the universe for this final awakening. And don't ask yourself why me and why not others. The answer is very simple. There is no others. There are no others. There is not even you. So drop all these questions, because these questions are brought by the mind. They again will bring a confusion, and you will end up in this confusion. And now we come back to the central teaching of Sri Ramana Maharshi, that is to be quiet. To be quiet. That means when you are able, through understanding, to create a distance from the fluctuations of the mind, because now they are no more relevant for you. You know the tricks of the mind, the play of the mind. You have seen through it that this is only the functioning of the mind. What I am is beyond that. It is pure presence. It is fulfillment. So then you don't touch that. And it comes automatically to a state of quietude. If you don't entertain the mind becomes very quiet. But of course, that quietness is not the real quietness, the real silence. That is only a temporary silence of the mind, and a sort of temporary cessation of the mind. It is not the ultimate silence. The ultimate silence is that unique, absolute consciousness, one without a second. That is the real meaning of silence. That is the Kaivalyam, that is alone in itself, because one and only one. And that silence, of course, cannot be described. It is not the cessation of anything. It is not the absence of noise or fluctuation. It cannot be described, yet it is the absolute silence. So by practicing this quietness of mind through understanding and detachment, you create the optimal conditions for this process of awakening. When you abide there within yourself, where no abidance, other abidance remains, then this process of awakening will definitely be enhanced, and you go deeper and deeper in the pure I, without trying to conceptualize it. Just drop all the thoughts and all the concepts, and then at some point here, that I also will be in a way neutralized. It will just disappear. It will dissolve, and you come to know, but not you as the individual being. You come to know your true being. So this is the process. It is open to everyone. It is not complicated at all. It is quite simple, but it requires or complete dedication, or willingness, or determination, and also the renunciation, not the renunciation to our role in the society, the renunciation to the person we believe we are, to all the set of beliefs about yourself. That is the only renunciation, the renunciation to the I, not to anything else. It's not the renunciation of the world, the renunciation of I. When I is renounced, the world is renounced. So let us go deep in that pure I. That means the heart or the self. These are synonyms. And consciousness will complete this process. Only consciousness is as I said, is the doer of awakening, and not the individual entity who never existed.